Thank you all for joining. And for those trickling in, I see a few extra names. Thanks for taking the time. Welcome to the first installment of the Aldoa Edge, Insights for Consulting and Engineering Leaders. This is going to be a weekly series we put on every Thursday, live series where you can come in, ask your questions, share your thoughts, and just talk about sort of what we've learned here at Aldoa from speaking with thousands of professional consulting and engineering companies. And given how this is the first go around, I figured, why don't we set the stage a little bit? I want to talk about today who we are as a company here and how we got started in the first place, what our mission is. And again, sort of through our conversations with hundreds of customers and thousands of consulting and engineering firms, what the pain in the market is. Whether it's report writing, whether it's managing financials, and we'll get into some of those buckets, really what causes business owners and senior project managers and field techs to stay up at night dreading what they have to do the next day? Where are those inefficiencies? And how are companies like we're leveraging modern age software looking to help aid what I hope nobody takes offense of as quite a neglected industry? So I'll start at the beginning, and as we do these weekly sessions, we'll dive deeper into some of these topics specifically. So again, just to set the stage, who am I? I'll kick it off. My name is Adam Loewentheil. I am the founder and the CEO of Aldoa. We founded Aldoa in 2021. Before that, I was working in the finance world, working as a hedge fund analyst, learning about a lot of different industries, how to analyze different markets. Did not like the job. Something about it itched me the wrong way. I ended up leaving with this real goal and this motivation to have some real positive impact in the world and to build something that actually would improve people's lives. My family, I come from 3 generations of builders before me in, construction and real estate. And I started shadowing my family's business with this goal of just speaking to as many people in the real estate transaction and the development and construction world as possible to understand where we could potentially come in and help. And again, I hope no one takes offense of this. I know I've talked to some of you in the crowd already of things that come off as slightly weird, but it's true of through my conversations with consultants and engineers. And again, I've been speaking to civil engineers, structural engineers, environmental consultants, land development companies, surveyors, right? Walked away from all these conversations with one large takeaway, which is the software and the tools that your firms are using are just not cut out for the job, right? A lot of my conversations, even with really quite sophisticated companies that had great reputations for the work they did and performed great work for what it's worth, but the tools that they were using were manual processes, pen and paper, a lot of Microsoft Word, a lot of Excel, some sort of cobbled together solutions that weren't built for consultants and engineers that they had to make work. We had some companies who I spoke to that built their own internal tools because nothing was available on the market, right? And Aldoa was really founded out of this recognition that this industry deserves better. Consultants and engineers, you are quite literally building and designing our nation's infrastructure, protecting those who inhabit it, and you're forced to use tools that were built for IT consultants, construction companies, and really this industry deserves better. At the same time as I was sort of going through this exploration process in the real estate and the development world, I had a good friend of mine, Jake, who is my co-founder and CTO, who was really diving in and building software from scratch. And he started his career at a big company that many of you might be familiar with called Workday. He then started working as an early engineer at a company called Qualia, which was building software for, again, another market that we viewed as sort of underappreciated, which was title insurance and settlement agents. And Jake saw there just how impactful modern software could be for industries that were just neglected from the get-go, that were so important to the backbone of our nation's infrastructure, right? So I teamed up with Jake and we again founded Aldoa in 2021. And over the past few years, we have been just building software to make consulting and engineering firms' lives easier. That is sort of our approach to this all. And before we could do that, and again, says, I had some perspective on the industry from the world of real estate and development, but me and Jake sort of entered this as listeners. And before we built anything, we had conversations with, again, quite literally, this is not an exaggeration, thousands of consulting and engineering firms. And not just, presidents and CEOs and owners, but different employees throughout the stack and throughout the organization. We wanted to focus on what a field tech is dealing with every day and the pain they felt there. What about a project manager who's more so focused on the financial side of things, of tracking budgets? And then also from the owner and operator perspective of what keeps them up at night, of understanding how can I grow this business? Why can't I find any skilled labor? There's some real labor shortages. How can I make my team more efficient with the tools that we have in place today? And so today is sort of the first manifesto of this Aldoa Edge series. I just wanted to sort of take a step back and talk about, and I'll bucket it into 5 different buckets of the pain that we hear from customers, consultants, engineers, surveyors, land development firms about what is plaguing their business. And really, we've used that as sort of the backbone of our product roadmap here at Aldoa. We've looked at sort of markets and software on the market today, what it's lacking, who it was built for. It's not always the consulting and engineering firms, and tried to identify how to build really powerful software that you all do deserve. Again, this is something where, again, we look at it from an investment perspective, where we are a venture capital backed company, and we've had to speak with a lot of venture capitalists about industries that are getting funding and where innovation is heading. And we are very fortunate to be backed by some incredible venture capitalists and investors who understand how important this industry is, and how sort of bizarre it is about the lack of innovation that this industry has seen. So I guess just jumping into it, let's sort of outline a few of these big buckets of pain, right? And the first one, which I think will resonate most with the project managers and the owners of the businesses, is on the finances of your shop. And again, that is the backbone of this. I know the administrative side of things is not super fun, but that is a part of the job. And it's an important part of the job because you need to know if you are profitable and if you can take on more work. And when we talk to firms about how they manage the finances of their business, the first thing that comes to mind is it's not really the finances of the business we're looking at a day basis. It's project level financials, right? If I'm preparing a lump sum or a time and material budget, I need to know if I am over or under budget, if my client is actually going to pay me for the work I am doing, making sure that I'm invoicing for all of the costs that I've incurred, knowing which lump sum jobs are profitable in the first place, right? We've been talking to a lot of, give an example in the environmental world, of shops that were taking phase 1 ESA work and losing $400 on every job. They would do a fixed cost, $2,000, lose 20% margin, negative 20% margin on every job, with this sort of hope that their clients would come back to them when it's time for more, phase 2 remediation work. And it just didn't play out that way for them. And we worked with one of these companies and we started to show them, hey, here's which jobs are profitable. Here's what's not profitable. And it redefined their entire approach of what clients to work with and what clients to candidly ignore. And again, sort of taking a step back, I mentioned in the earlier sort of introduction in this financial management piece, a lot of companies are using software that was not built for engineers or consultants. It wasn't even built for service-based work, right? And I'll give some examples of QuickBooks. QuickBooks is one of the most widely used financial systems. It's pretty good at general ledger sort of tracking of finances. It's good for paying your taxes. Your bookkeepers might like it. But at the end of the day, it's really hard for project managers to track their projects. you're preparing a budget that's signed off by a client with different phases of work. If your solutions don't track your costs as outlined by budget tasks and budget phases, that's a real problem. Not just for understanding the profitability of your projects, but when it's time to invoice your clients, they're going to not understand what they're getting invoiced for. There's going to be all of that back and forth about, where costs are supposed to be associated with which tasks in the budget. And all of that back and forth just detracts from billable time that you could be spending. So the first sort of backbone, again, is this financial management piece, which we view as, again, it's probably one of the more, I'll say, the least sexy parts of the job. And again, most of you went to school for civil engineering, geology. You do not really want to be talking about timesheets and invoicing and project-based budgeting, but that is the backbone of this all. And if that is something that is detracting from the time you can spend, that is a real problem. You want to be performing work and getting paid for that work. And that is one of the real buckets of pain we hear from, again, not just business owners, but project managers who don't want to be spending their time on something that should be automated away. And that's actually where we got our start as a company, is with the help of a few engineering and consulting companies in New Jersey. We got started, actually. We built software around their businesses. We had several companies who we said, hey, we're going to come in. We are going to build you a system from scratch that enables you to build budgets, T&M or lump sum, rate tables for equipment, labor, whatever it may be, have project-specific rate tables, overrides, all the complexity you can need. Have it in one central location where you can track your expenses, your time, you can cut invoices, you can customize those invoices, you can put the costs on the invoices as it is laid out on the budget, all in one easy-to-use, very modern solution that, again, was built for consultants and engineers. That is where we got our start. That is sort of our beachhead product that we now have over 100 customers using. And it's a really good example of how someone who can just come in and be listening to the pain of customers and really understanding these nuances that might not seem like a big deal on the outside, but when you're tracking projects every single day, these small little paper cuts add up. So again, that's sort of the first bucket on the financial management piece. I would say the second bucket of pain, I'll call it resource management, right? And what I mean by that is, again, let's keep this in the context of some problems happening in the industry right now. One of the ones that we hear all the time when we started the company, even today, 3 years later, is it is really hard to find good workers. There is a skilled labor shortage that is a real problem right now. And you are basically dealing with, as a PM, an owner, whatever it may be, you have a set pool of resources, which is your workers. And you need to be able to take on as much work as possible with this limited and scarce pool of resources. And a lot of the firms that we talk to, and again, just to reiterate, this is not just the 5-10 person shops. We have conversations with some real, in the New York tri-state area, in California and Texas and Florida, all across the country, who have these, 500 employee firms that are really still struggling to understand when they're able to take on new work. And potentially they've been burned in the past by signing a new client and then having a lot of delays with deliverables because they were overworked. We talk to some businesses who they don't even know their employees' schedules. Or maybe they do, but it's all stored in scattered Excel files across, can't find it with a few clicks. And I think that this understanding of, hey, there's a real labor shortage right now. We need to maximize the resources we have, and we need to understand when we can take on new work and when to not take on new work because it will hurt our reputation. And that is a very underappreciated side of this resource management and resource utility. I have spoken with business owners who I think were a little, times when, and I hope this isn't taboo, but have ruined relationships with clients by promising quick turnaround projects and not missing deadlines by a few days or a few weeks, but by months. And that really doesn't just hurt your relationship with clients, but clients talk. This is a fairly tight-knit world, especially regionally, of the real estate developers, the oil and gas companies, the lenders who you're doing work for. You don't want to be known as the shop who can't actively plan their resource management. So again, this is a big bucket that we see a real for innovation in. And I mentioned that the Aldoa platform sort of started with the financial side of things, but we've been investing really heavily in project management tools. And I think that a lot of companies, prospects, customers we talk to, a big trend that we see is, something in place for this. And they're using something, and I won't call out names, but they're using a solution they found online. It costs them $5 or $10 per employee per month, and it's marketed to everyone. It is sold to IT consultants. It's sold to architecture, engineering, construction, professional services across the board. It's sold to software developers, and it's marketed as every single tool you can need for the project management. And it has just become so clear through our conversations that the workflows of engineers and consultants are different than the workflows from other professional services businesses. And to use software that work for everyone is shooting yourself in the foot. And there are still very effective and cost-effective solutions out there that won't break the bank, that will allow you to know when you can take on new work, when your people are overworked, overstaffed, etc. And the theme of this, again, because I don't see the labor shortage changing at any time. In the audience, you can put in the chat if you disagree with me, but Octo is dealing with some real labor shortages and just the inability to find skilled workers out there. And we're getting to this phase of innovation where, let's say you have one really good field tech, Steve, right? We're getting to this point, and this is sort of to the additional cost, pain, buckets of pain shortly. We're getting to this point where software can make it where every field tech can be Steve, right? You have one person who's always on time. His notes are incredibly organized. He puts everything back into the N drive or the SharePoint folder or whatever it may be when it gets back to the office. It's ready to use in your reports. Given where software is heading, I am confident that every single employee in this professional consulting and engineering world can be upgraded substantially with some good software. And I'd sort of use that as a segue, I guess, into the third bucket of pain that we identified from our conversations with customers. And the first two pieces on the financial management and resource management piece, those are the pieces that we started with as a company here at Aldoa, because we really wanted to address the core of the issue and be a real platform for these businesses. We don't want to just be a solution, a single point feature. We want to be the platform that everyone logs into sort of first thing in the morning and logs out to for end of the day, that manages their workflow. And part of that mission is now, again, getting more into what do consultants and engineers actually do other than tracking their budgets and their resources and managing financials, right? What did you get into this industry to do in the first place? And so the one piece, which is a really, really fascinating emerging area of technology, I would say, is in the data collection in the field, or field data collection, right? And if I think about what the status quo is today in the market, and again, I know that some people are starting to leverage technology. We have some tablets in the field. I've talked to some firms who have built their own software to enable field technicians. The status quo, nonetheless, is pen and paper. You have your field notebook. You are going and collecting data, observations. You are writing it down. And then when you get back to the office the next day, you are either transcribing it by hand into a digital format, or you are taking a photo of it and scanning it onto your computer. There are some real problems with that, and these should not be surprises to anyone. The first one is just errors, data integrity. If you are writing, cliche is that doctors have bad handwriting. I've talked to a lot of business owners who say the same is true for engineers and consultants, right? If you are responsible for maintaining very sensitive data, right, in the environmental world, we're talking about parts per million when you're doing laboratory testing. Transcription errors with that are unacceptable. And I know there are some pushbacks to adopting sort of those mobile friendly devices of, hey, I'm wearing gloves in the field. It's a little hard to type. Or, when it's cold out, the screen doesn't work. It's freezing. We're starting to see some ways around that, such as voice to text, which is something that here at Aldoa, we're building into our field data collection software. So you can just speak into the phone. You don't have to actually type anything out. Those sort of objections aren't working anymore. There's no excuse to not be using tools that make your business more efficient. And again, I want to sort of ground this whole conversation in pain, because that is really how we get to resonate with consulting and engineering firms is what is the pain here? And one of the big ones that I hear, and if there's any, I see a few senior project managers on the call, you get a call from a client who knows that your team was in the field that day. And the client says, okay, what are the results? Like the lender is breathing down our neck. Like we need to get this done today, tomorrow, ASAP. And you have to tell the client, I have no idea. My field tech clocked out. Their notes are in a notepad in their car right now, and they're not coming into the office until Monday after the weekend. So when they come in on Monday, they'll transcribe it by hand into the office. I'll let you know. That is not a good look for customers. Your clients take note of that. And again, this isn't a scare tactic thing. It's sort of the pain that we hear from customers and employees in this space. And just taking a step back again, like software comes so far where if we're still performing double entry, right, where we're doing something on a manual pen and paper and then typing that up in the office, that is somewhere really easy that we can just make our processes more efficient. And again, going back to my of having that one lab tech, that one field tech, that one staff scientist or staff engineer who is superior, and then everyone else is sort of, but they're not as good. Software is really starting to make an argument that every technician can be as good as your best tech. And that's something that really goes understated. We've already seen that happen in other industries, and companies like Aldoa, who are trying to innovate and provide modern solutions. I think we're going to start to see that happening in the consulting and engineering space as well. So again, just a quick recap. I know I'm giving out a lot of information on really the pain and the visceral reaction of companies when we say to them, if we can build you one thing to make your lives easier, to make you more productive, to make your clients want to do more work with you, what is it? We've talked about the financial piece. We've talked about resource management. We have then talked about sort of getting more into the workflow of collecting data in the field. Another big piece, which I'll call the penultimate bucket of pain, is on the report writing side of things of, hey, I've collected this data in the field. It's now time to put this into my final deliverable for my client. And again, this is not as simplistic as writing a report. Everyone can, I think it's inefficient, but everyone can have a template in Microsoft Word that they fill in with data and send to a client. Yes, there are problems with that. You can use a stale template that you sort of a year ago that has different fields. If ASTM standards are changing, you're going to need to be able to track how that template is changing. There are problems with that, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot more to this report writing process than just writing the actual report. And it's sort of the people side of it. Who is writing what section? Do they know they're doing that? Do they know when it's due? Has it been edited yet? Who is supposed to approve this? What about the back and forth with the client of the revision history of things that they object to, things that they might want to see in the report? Because again, the whole point of this is client-facing work is the most important piece. We're seeing some really, really applications pop up in this space of report writing and the whole management of the approvals and sign off and allocation of work. And this is one of the places where Aldoa as a company are looking to leverage AI to really make an impact on this. And I think that it's making the point that there is a lot of low-hanging fruit efficiency that software companies can enable consulting and engineering firms to take advantage of, right? But what we're seeing in this AI market, and again, I think I was a skeptic at first, it's mind-blowing how efficient these AI sort of enabled can make your company, right? And we've seen this in all of these different spaces. In the legal tech sort of space, we see lawyers who were, having to build these very, very technical reports. They're just putting in a few data points, and the AI models that are being trained over time are filling in all of this boilerplate information, right? There's no more use for a template. It can automate that entire process. And it goes a little further than that. Like, let's proposals, for an example. If you're building a lot of proposals that are for sort of scopes of work, we've seen and we're experimenting with this right now at Aldoa. This is our plan to release later this year, actually, is to be able to train our models to be able to say, just put in the client name, the site address, the type of work that you're doing, and have your budget in there. And the AI model can fill out everything. It is remarkable, and especially remarkable if you think about it framed in sort of billable time aspect, right? When we're talking about a lot of this boilerplate work of proposals, budgeting, et cetera, if AI can take that away, you just have more time to spend on the scientific and critical thinking side of things and on the billable hours, right? So I personally, and here at Aldoa, we are really excited about the prospect of bringing AI to this industry. And through our conversations with customers, building up enough knowledge to train these models to really do some powerful work. It's not just you going on ChatGPT. These models can be quite verticalized to the workflow of engineering and consulting companies. So we are really excited about that. And I think it's a really natural sort of progression from, hey, we're releasing right now, Aldoa, we have the field data collection side of things, right? Of collecting data in the field, sort of aggregating back into the office without data errors and transcriptions problems. And now sort of taking that to the next level of using that data, funneling it into your templated reports and using AI to autofill and help with a lot of the time associated with writing that report. So we are really excited about that. Stay tuned. That will be a full topic that we talk about in the future session of just diving into AI as it relates to data collection and report generation. The last piece, I said there were 5 buckets when I started this off of real visceral pain that we hear in the market. And I'd say this one probably resonates, obviously, with more of the senior profile of senior project managers, owners, people who are dealing with customers and vendors. It's this whole world of client and subcontractor interaction, right? And I think people are so used to their tech stack here, right, of phone and email, that they don't understand what they're missing by not using more efficient tooling. And I'll give a few examples. And I think one of the good ones, easiest one to understand, is on the subcontractor side. When you're dealing with drilling, excavation, geophysical contractors, there's a wide variety in the environmental world, which we focus on as well. With civil engineering, we have sort of laboratory companies, right? What tends to happen is that you have your go-to guy, and you have Joe Schmo, the driller, who's 20 miles away, who he's pretty reliable, but you just have this relationship with him. And when you have a project, you call Joe and you say, hey, how much is 3 days of drilling for this project? Let's put it into our proposal. And I think that business owners are starting to just understand how much money is being left on the table by not having an active bidding process, right? And it doesn't have to be rocket science here. It could be as simple as bidding out your project to 5 subs, 5 vendors, right? And making it more competitive. I understand that there is a natural tendency to go to your guy, right? Your go-to driller, excavator, whatever it may be. But it's just becoming very clear that as labor margins are increasing, right? I think industry labor margins in the engineering world are 45%. As these margins are increasing, you need to find ways to save as much money as possible. And a very competitive bidding process using software that can automate the sending out of proposals, the collection of bids, payment, signatures, everything. Automate the entire thing, right? No more check paying, just have online portals. You don't have to accept credit card fees, just do ACH. There's such low-hanging fruit here that quite literally can save tens of thousands of dollars on a project-by-project basis. I think a lot of owners are starting to pick up on that as they're getting, their margins compressed by increasing salaries, increasing costs across the entire spectrum of the company. Where can we be a little bit more competitive? And it's on that bidding and procurement side. And then I mentioned sort of subcontractor interaction as this sort of bucket of pain. There's also the client side of things. And I have touched on this several times throughout this conversation of getting that client call and having to disappoint them, of saying, hey, we don't know what's going on here. One of the best things you can do to prevent those calls from happening in the first place is add a level of transparency that works for your business, right? And again, I put that caveat in there because a lot of times you don't want to, and again, you're not hiding anything from your customers, but you don't want to fully open the books and allow them the justification to scrutinize you day in and day out, right? That is not what we are suggesting here. But there are some pretty easy tools available today that we at Aldoa are also building into our platform that are enabling our customers, consulting, engineering, surveying companies, to just have better relationships with their clients, right? It can be as simple as, call the pizza tracker. And I think it was Domino's Pizza who originally set this up of, hey, you place your order and you have that progress bar and it says your order has been received, your pizza's in the oven, you're out for delivery, order complete. And just something as simple of that as giving your clients a little bit of understanding of where you are in the process of that project will stop you from getting the headaches of client questions day in and day out. And it's not to sort of your privacy or your security as a company, right? And everything we're building into the software, by the way, fully customizable. You can show what you want to show to a customer. They're not getting access to everything that you see on a day-to-day basis. But we've had conversations with really experienced project managers who say the best way to have positive client relationships is to be proactive. Email them and say, hey, we just did our inspection of the site. We're writing the report. The due date sort of deliverable that we expected is 24, 48 hours delayed, but we're getting in front of this right now. We'll keep you updated. Clients appreciate that, want reliability. A lot of the things that we've been talking about today are sort of focused on profitability, right? Of making the most out of your resources, maybe growth as well, of knowing when to take on more work. I think the reliability side is really underappreciated. And at least the more sophisticated customers we talk to all understand that reliability is sort of the way that they can continue to win business, right? So be reliable first with your customers, sort of transparency with them. And this is a really big opportunity for software. It is really easy to build these portals that you don't need to pick up the phone and call them. I know a lot of people are sort of reluctant nowadays to get on the phone and just speak person to person, which is a trend that we're seeing happening, which I don't know what we can do about. But again, having these sort of easy messaging systems, communication systems, a portal where you can log in and you can see all of your messages from all of your clients and subcontractors all in one centralized place, right? That's really impactful. And again, I'll sort of end it because I know we're cutting close on time, and I appreciate everyone's time who's here in the audience. All of these solutions, we're starting to see some real innovation in the market. And we've seen some alternative options for some of these buckets of pain. Candidly, we haven't been blown away by the innovation in this market. And we also haven't seen anyone sort of capitalize on bundling multiple of these solutions in one singular place. And I think sort of the all-in-one approach sometimes gets a little criticism, I'll say, because people say you can't do all of this. And everyone is so used to having their software for, modeling, their software for financials and timesheet tracking, their software for maybe field data collection. They're getting, their field text now. If those softwares don't talk to one another, that issue of double entry is not going away. You are being fooled by this thought of efficiency, but unless everything is feeding into a central database, there is still that real big problem of double, triple across your tech stack. So the way that we're approaching this in Aldoa, and we're very thankful to sort of have, investment behind us and be able to bring this in pretty quick fashion to the masses in the environmental, engineering, consulting, surveying, land development world, is to try and really capitalize on this all-in-one approach and not to sacrifice on one piece of the stack for the speed of getting product out, but rather to innovate, get really good product out, to have some really sort of mind-boggling features in there. Like when we talk about the vertical AI agent element of this, I guarantee, and we're sort of wrapping up our development of this, if you get on a demo with us and you see what we can do on this autofill and sort of the elimination of the manual work that you don't want to do, it will shock you. And that's sort of again, back to how I started this conversation. I was shocked from my conversations with consulting and engineering firms of just how bad the software they were using is and how little innovation and investment was coming into this space. We are here to change that. And we are really excited about the prospect of working with all of you. This is not sort of just a sales webinar. I want to hear your pain. If there's anyone here listening right now in the audience, I see we still got plenty of people here who have survived 40 minutes. Please just email me, team. Go to the Aldoa website, book a demo, whatever it is. Get in front of us and just complain to us. Sit down with us and say, hey, those 5 buckets, 3 of them are the bane of my existence. Here's one you missed, right? This one, payment collection, right? Which is something we've heard of, but this grinds my gears. This is the thing that keeps me up at night of I have accounts receivables that's aged 90 days. My customers won't pay me. I don't know how software can help with this. Software can help with a lot of these problems that you don't even think it can. Come to us and talk to us. We want to be sort of not just a partner for software, but sort of a partner for critical thought and brainstorming. And we are dedicated to being a leader in this space. Please help us make that happen. That's only going to happen if we can hear from you about what keeps you up at night as a firm owner, as a project manager, as a staff scientist, as an intern. Whatever it may be, we want to hear about it. And we'll be here every single week, every Thursday, diving into some topics about what really we can do to innovate in this industry. That's it. I'll give everyone some time back in their day. Again, this was sort of the Aldoa Edge of just giving a high-level overview of where we are as a company, what our mission is, what we see in the market, and how we're going to bring real innovation over the coming months. So if you're interested in hearing more, go to our website, www.aldoa.com, book a demo with us. Even if it's not sort of on the financial management or resource management piece that you are worried about, we're building some really cool things behind the scene, and we want to hear what keeps you up at night and where software can help.